Student housing is such a unique industry. The more unique an industry is, the more important it is for that industry to have a resource and a platform to share ideas and data, to determine best practices, and a platform to simply promote networking among the professionals in that industry. That's what we are setting out to provide with Student Housing Insight. But what's even more unique about the student housing industry is how unique those professionals are. They want to make a positive impact on the students and the university communities they serve. They understand they have an opportunity to touch the future. They come to work every day looking for ways to make that future bright. If you're one of those people, come be a part of Student Housing Insight. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Shop Talk for February 13th. I hope everyone is doing well. If you can hear me, please put something in the chat so I know that I've got everything working and you guys can hear me just fine. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Well, fantastic. Well, guys, really quick. All right, I see some comments. Sounds like everybody can hear me. That's great. Couple of housekeeping things I want to go over. But first of all, proper introduction. I'm Wesley Dees with Student Housing Insight. If you haven't heard of Student Housing Insight, started out as a podcast. Now we're kind of a full-fledged company putting together content like today's webinar. So if you haven't checked us out, go to studenthousinginsight.com and you can get more information there. Welcome again to Shop Talk today. There's a couple of things that I wanted to encourage you guys to do, which is number one, chat. Would love to see where you guys are coming in from today. So please put your location in the chat. If you've got any questions that you want to ask to our panelists today, we ask that you just put a Q in front of that comment so that I can easily kind of pick that out. And if you got a good question, we'll definitely put it up and ask our panelists today. Well, hey, let's go ahead and jump into it. We've got a full stack today, so want to go ahead and get into it. Dave, how was your conference was it last week or 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah, they all blend together. So 2 weeks ago, we had, and again, I'm not 100% sure of the exact numbers, but somewhere north of 7,500 people there. So it was a good crew out in San Diego, and I know that my colleagues over at the MBA are having their CREF conference as we speak, also in the same location, the same hotel. So hopefully we didn't destroy the hotel too much with all those people there. But it's a great conference, and we actually had quite a number of people within the student housing industry there, and we had a meeting of the student housing industry as well. So certainly I think it's a recognition by the industry that a lot of work that we do at NMHC, while Matthew Berger and I focus on student housing, in addition to a couple other things that we have responsibility for, a lot of the issues that we deal with on the conventional side are exactly the same kind of issues that people are dealing with on the student housing side. So yes, it's unique. Yes, there are definitely some differences, but when it comes down to operating a property or getting a property financed, a lot of the issues that we deal with here at NMHC that are pertinent to the industry apply to both.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you doing that for our folks out in San Diego, and then also thanks for joining us every single month and giving us these important legislation and policy updates that are happening in DC and kind of connecting the dots on how they're impacting us. So, with that being said, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. All right. Won't take too long today. Just wanted to give a couple quick updates on some things that, again, are always pertinent to the industry. First one, which my colleague Matthew Berger, besides, again, student housing, when I mentioned we do some other things, he is our resident tax expert, and there is some pending tax legislation that is currently being kicked around right now. Hopefully we can get that passed. Some of them are provisions that are pertinent to the industry, student housing included, regarding certain types of depreciation and other things that would have an impact on the industry to the degree that they were to expire. And simply a look forward, I think we're all dealing with 2024, since it's only February 13th. But back in 2017, when the Tax Cut and Jobs Act was passed, a lot of the provisions sunsetted in 2025. And so, yeah, may think it's too early, but I often compare congressional members as bad students who wait to do the assigned book report or some other kind of report they're supposed to work on to the last minute. And oftentimes they do that. But for us, we're already starting some of that, and certainly we'll be evaluating not only what is expiring is an opportunity to insert some things in there. So stay tuned for that, and you'll hear more from that on our monthly update as we get closer and closer to that. During our conference, actually, FHFA, who is the regulator of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, issued their final scorecard. And we reported this back in December. The majority of the scorecard has already been identified in terms of it's got the caps that the enterprises are subject to for the year, which is $70 billion each. And with the provision that they're always listening to people, meaning us and others, about to the degree that the cap is getting close to reaching capacity, that they would increase that. So we're pretty comfortable with what they identified, and we have so we're fine with that. Included in that was a line item about insurance. It was focused on single family, which is a bit unusual. But yesterday, FHFA announced a listening session and looking at insurance costs for multifamily. And one of my colleagues here, Kevin Donnelly, who covers insurance, will be one of the panelists on this listening session. So encourage people who are dealing with insurance related topics, and I clearly know that people on this phone are. I would highly encourage you to register. You can register both if you happen to be here in DC. It's March 13th, but it also you can tap in via Zoom as well. So something that's critically important, something we've been working on as well.
Now, if we want to register for it,
here regarding junk fees, but the FTC has been focused on the junk fees, quote unquote, and I really hate the term, but our industry charges our residents a series of fees, and so does anybody who's buying a ticket for a concert or any other type of transaction where we all of a sudden see a lot of fees being layered on. The administration is really focused on this right now, and they had thousands of responses to this comment letter that they had issued regarding fees and disclosure of fees. So stay tuned on that as we hear more about that. We'll certainly give people on this call an update. But again, if you're leasing, which you all are, these are things that it may result in more disclosure upfront being required, and or if you're charging the same fee to everybody regardless, and it's not really opt out, you may think about having to include that into your leases going forward. So we will certainly keep you informed in terms of what comes out of this, but it is something that has an intense focus by the administration and those agencies right now. There is a listening session that FHFA, Fannie and Freddie are holding this Friday. We're going to be participating in that along with our colleagues at NAA, the home builders, and a few other organizations. And what they're really looking at is the energy efficiency standards in new construction and what they would potentially require for any loans that Fannie or Freddie would purchase. This is important. Normally, the building codes regarding energy efficiency are at the determination of the state that you're dealing in. So any of your new construction that you're thinking about, you may be required to conform with a code that is not what your local state. So we're going to be pushing back on that. But again, this is something that to the degree that you have a property that is being that's new and going to be financed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, this could, and I only say could, have a potential impact. I think they're kind of early on in this analysis and discussion right now. So again, something that we'll report on in the future. And the last thing is, look, everybody's really spun up on AI. The question you could probably ask everybody on this call, what do you define as AI? And everybody's got different definitions of what they consider to be AI. Well, with that in mind, Congress is all spun up about AI as well. And they are continuing look at this, whether it means regulatory, legislative, et cetera. They've held hearings. There's a lot of other things that they're examining right now. And a lot of the things that we use that fall under the guise of AI could come under some regulatory umbrella if Congress gets wild in what they want to regulate. So we just published a paper on AI and submitted this to Congress last week. If you're an NMHC member, you can certainly log in and get a copy of that, so you can take a look at the types of things that we are pushing back on the efforts from Congress or regulators pertaining to AI and what this means, what it means to our industry, et cetera. So just a quick snapshot of a couple different things that I really wanted to highlight that are impactful to the industry, but also ones that, when I say industry, I'm including both student and conventional. And we'll continue to tailor those kind of things when we always have when we have these conversations. But it's important to the industry. So anything that you have questions on, whether it's comments here or whether after the fact, feel free to reach out to me. So, and then I'm going to make one plug for my colleague Rich Kelly, who's coming on. One of my favorite student housing conferences, if not the favorite one, coming up. And the reason I like it so much is I don't have to do any work to prepare for it, like our student housing conference in the fall. So look forward to seeing a lot of you. And Rich, I look forward to seeing you in the spring. And with that, Wes, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Well, Dave, one quick question for those listening sessions that you mentioned. Should we register for those at the NMHC website, or do we need to go to Freddie or Fannie's website? What's the best way to?
So the new building standard one is that's not one that is outside of
Okay.
other than the people who have been invited. So there's nothing there at the moment. This is just kind of a listening / interview, but we can certainly report back to everybody next month as it pertains to what they may want to hear on that.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, Dave, thanks so much. And yeah, with that being said, I'll move things over to Rich to talk about a couple of upcoming events. Rich, how are things going with Interface?
Good, Wes. First of all, thank you, Dave, for those nice comments. And I feel the same exact way. My favorite event to go to is yours because I don't have to do all the work getting it ready. I just go and enjoy. So you and I are simpatico on that. But yeah, we are deep in Interface student housing planning, a lot going on. We have our early bird registration rate that ends next Thursday. So for all of you out there who may not have registered yet, or you're on the fence, or you just haven't gotten around to it, if you sign up by next Thursday, you can save yourself $200. Most people are usually very happy to save $200. So again, Thursday, February 22nd, as the graphic says. Sign up before 6 o'clock that night. Thanks for posting that nice graphic, Wes. One other thing to note, a lot of companies are always very keen on the Student Housing Business Innovator Awards and entering the Innovator Awards and hopefully winning an Innovator Award. The deadline for submitting your entries to the Innovator Awards portal is this Thursday, February 15th. So you can spend your Valentine's Day polishing off your entries and try to get those into us again by the end of the day on the 15th. Otherwise, everything's looking great for the event. Interesting time for the industry. Great leasing, great rental rates, capital markets, investment development, hopefully coming back. So there will be plenty to talk about in April.
Well, great. Well, Rich, thanks so much, and looking forward to seeing you in April for sure. I know I'm talking to a lot of people. It sounds like most people are coming in on the 23rd and starting meetings a day early. So if you haven't got your hotel block, I guess that's one other quick question, Rich. Hotel block, have you met that yet? Has it started expanding to the other hotels like it typically does?
Good question. And you're right. It seems like people are coming in earlier and earlier because we have a lot of rooms booked for that Tuesday night, the 23rd. Answer to your question is there are a few rooms left on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night. We're trying to get more. We're not sure if we're going to be able to get more because we've already taken down a pretty big number. So if you do want to get into the JW, I would do that now. We will have another block next door at the Hyatt Place. It's a nice hotel, literally next door. Everyone seems to be pretty happy that winds up staying over there. But more to come on that.
All right, perfect. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity, Wes.
All right, take care. And one other event that is coming up that we're doing here at Student Housing Insight is this is part of our Innovating Student Housing Operations webinar series that we're doing this year. And it's going to be measuring resident satisfaction to gain operational insight, which is sponsored by Opinion. So if you're one of the folks with your company that is focused on resident satisfaction and reputation management, make sure that you go to our website and register for that. Charlie, how are you?
I feel like every time I log on here, someone texts me about my outfit. So at least this one was a nice word for Mr. Abernathy. But we're doing good.
We've already given him heck on his sport coat that he's wearing today.
I've heard self-proclaimed best hair in student housing, but neither here nor there. Anyway, excited to chat through. We are midway through February, which is wild. I've got an awesome panel here. Without further ado, let's bring them on and let them introduce themselves before we get into all the information.
Aly, we'll start
with you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Wes. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Aly Hufnagle from Core Spaces. I've been with the company about 2.5 years and in the industry about 12.5. Was formerly with Greystar and EDR before that. So really, like I said, happy to be here and looking forward to the chat.
Jasmin.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll go Jasmin.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Jasmin Zelinko. I'm the Vice President of Operations with Yugo. I've been with Yugo almost 6 months. Prior to that, I was with Pierce Education Properties. I've been in the industry 25 years this year, so I'm really excited about this panel and everything that we get to share.
All right, Paige. Last but certainly not least.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paige from the Tailwind Group. Been with the Tailwind Group 7 years, corporate leasing manager, overseeing our Midwestern properties. So I'm excited to join for this.
Excited to have you. Awesome. Well, to set the stage in the conversation today, I want to pull up a little bit of information from a national perspective. We have seen a little bit of a slowdown, I will say. So let's go back to that first one before and we won't make people do math, don't worry. But nationally, pre-leasing is at 57.1%, about 7% behind last year. And then rent growth nationally is about 8.5%. Again, we're seeing a little bit of that late velocity on the rents from last year kind of kick up. And as we're not as much keeping pace, again, from a dollar perspective, it is, but from a percentage basis, it's not. So nationally sitting about 8.6%. From a rent growth perspective. And again, I'm not going to make you do math because I can't do these percentages off the top of my head. But if we look over here on the floor plan year-over-year pre-leasing trends, we're seeing a common theme across the U.S. where your smaller unit types, the studios 1s and 2s, are seeing a little bit of a slowdown where the larger unit types, the 4s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s are seeing some increased velocity. And as we look at how that kind of correlates with the rates, here on this next slide, you can see.
There you go.
You can see, that again, a lot of that rate growth is being driven from those larger unit types. Again, from a percentage basis, $70 on the 4 bedrooms. Again, is very similar to what we're seeing. Actually, maybe even more there on the studios. But again, from a percentage basis, it's smaller. So correlating the slowdown in the pre-leasing velocity with a little bit less rent growth. Again, opens up the conversation around, where do we go from here? But still strong fundamentals. I mean, 8.7% on the largest unit type across or I guess the most concentrated unit type with the 4 bedrooms is strong. So with that, right, setting the tone here, I want to bring in our panelists and kind of dive in a little bit about their day-to-day with the markets that they're markets are involved with and seeing some of these changes. So, Aly, we're going to start with you. I know Core Spaces has built some beautiful buildings over the last, decade or so. One actually here kind of in my backyard in Atlanta, at Hub Atlanta. But, as we're approaching, I'd say the second semester, right? Are there any markets, whether that's a market where you have a new development in or, a stabilized asset in, that maybe on our pre-call, we said the making you lose sleep, but, are reacting in a way that you didn't expect kind of when you started off the year. So we'll start with you on that front.
Yeah, great question. And definitely seeing that some of that across the country, but most particularly in Madison, in the Madison market, we have one of 4 new developments delivering this fall, which is interesting in a market that hasn't seen any new development leasing since about 2018 when the James delivered. So it's a really interesting market. We've been in the market several years ago and had a lot of success. We started in the Madison market with the Hub Madison in 2015. That property has done stellar. It leases up almost overnight. Like we joke about it. It breaks the system and it's no longer our property, but we really had that kind of background where we were like, okay, Madison market, like Core is back in Madison and we're gonna crush it. And we just haven't seen that. It's a little bit more price sensitive than I think we anticipated. And like I said, just 4 new developments at once is challenging in any market, but we're especially seeing that there this year. So
yeah, I think if I recall back in like November, all of a sudden it was like rocket ship to 50-60%, and then for some reason things have kind of slowly made their way. With the fundamentals again, like should be fine, but definitely with four developments coming in. And again, I think, the market reacting to some new inventory probably, is a perfect storm there. But I will say I've seen that kind of trend where there was a lot of deals that really jumped off and then have kind of slowed down here kind of in the later months of the leasing cycle as I guess that first wave of students are kind of coming on. But moving, I guess, transitioning to Paige, I know we talked a little bit about a couple markets that you were seeing some challenges, but also some surprising from in a positive way. Talk me through what's going on in Oxford, Mississippi for the good people at Tailwind Group.
Yeah, Oxford, Mississippi really in the last 3 years has just been kind of an anomaly for rent growth there. I mean, we hit 18% rent growth this year at, one of our major properties, huge property. And now kind of heading into the latter part of the leasing season, we're seeing kind of a plateau with residents maybe looking for more price conscious options. And I think, we talked a little bit about, are we hitting a ceiling? Is this, something that, we're going to have to come out with these concessions that we weren't planning on and kind of drop off on the rent growth. And I think, Oxford is one of those unique markets. I think we've seen something kind of similar happening in the Midwest, Lincoln and Iowa City, where, we have these, downtown high rise, super amenity rich properties that we thought were going to perform really well. And we found that, our properties on the outskirts of town where we have sister properties are doing a little bit better, more, price conscious, they're not paying $150 to $200 a month for parking. And I think we're just seeing, some of the trends of people not wanting to sign for the 1 and 2 beds, going for the easy layups of the 5 beds where they can get, $200 or $300 discounts. So it's been an interesting year. I think that, while we hope that we can continue the rent growth for, leading into the spring, I think that we're going to have to start, reevaluating with some rates and concessions for the price conscious prospects who are coming out of the woodwork now. Definitely seeing a lot of that, not just in, Lincoln, Nebraska or some of those markets you mentioned, but there's a handful out there that definitely experiencing some similar things from a slowdown perspective. And hey, we might have reached a cliff there on the rates perspective. Jasmin, same question. I know there's a handful of markets that are a thorn in your side and everything else is actually going super well. So let's talk about the thorn in your side before we talk about the ones that are performing exceptionally well.
Yeah, so the thorn in my side probably would be the Pacific Northwest, and not all of the Pacific Northwest. I want to say Seattle is probably a market that's a bit challenging right now. only from the standpoint of it is a niche market where it's a little late to lease market, but then also you have some new supply coming in and the university enrollment is kind of staying steady. Mm-hmm. So everyone's kind of scrambling to get where they need to be before the market starts rolling out in March or April. Whereas though, Eugene, Oregon is killing it. That's a side where we saw a 17% increase week over week. The last 2 weeks, they've been doing double digits. So it's crazy to see. They're kind of close together, but so far apart. But yeah, Seattle is definitely one that keeps me up at night, 2 a.m, thinking of what we can do.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say one of the common trends that I've seen, again, I would call it your more urban markets. So we'll bucket out your larger MSAs that have like a Seattle, a Berkeley, a Minneapolis, you name it. Definitely seeing some challenges in I wouldn't say necessarily the lease up side, but you now have to account for the conventional market that there's downward pressure on rents. And I mean, I've seen some of these concessions, just looking at a website, 2 to 3 months free at a property that may be, a mile away, where again, going to that kind of the price conscious concept, you're definitely something I don't think people accounted for, where like in Oxford, Mississippi, like Paige was mentioning, that still doesn't exist. You have a shadow market, but you don't have this kind of blooming conventional market where there's a ton of new supply. That's really, again, a new entrant where it wasn't as much, in years past. With a few minutes left here, I want to, I guess, ask a couple questions. I know, as we're looking at, again, it's February 12th or February 13th. Sorry, can't look at a calendar. We're approaching this kind of latter half of the leasing cycle where, I guess May or April.
By the way, Charlie, tomorrow's Valentine's Day, so don't forget that.
The guy, I just got a message. My flowers can't be delivered, so we got a whole new batch of issues here. But anyway, what I'm more so saying is, for those sites and for those markets that you're mentioning that are not reacting in the way you were expecting, what's the general communication, to those site teams? Aly, hey, we've got a monster coming in Madison, Wisconsin, and Jasmin, hey, it's a crowded market in Seattle. What's the general communication there to those on-site teams and how you're kind of approaching the second half of the leasing cycle?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. For us, it's really all about support, right? Like where can we help you and what can we do to get us to the finish line? I mean, sometimes it feels like we're throwing darts at a dartboard, and sometimes that's okay, right? You just got to figure out what the students are looking for and then the execution, right? So whether it's a NIL deal or a marketing contract of some sort, everything is fair game, and we're looking at everything, and we're supporting the teams through those obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same here. Like for example, in Seattle, where we are dealing with the conventional market, we have to pivot quickly and decide, do we want to take on that same challenge and start offering full unit leases and have friends and whatnot, like just team up together and get into one unit versus leasing by the bed. So I think, being able to pivot and telling the teams to get a little bit creative and excited about what they could possibly pull in and start offering is what we're doing, and offering that support as well. So it's going well. Once you're able to pivot and move forward and have that goal in sight, things will shape out.
Definitely. And then Paige, very similar. Is it a similar story there with Tailwind? I know there's a lot of markets that are doing super well, but for the Lincoln, where there's been some new supply, similar kind of conversation with those on-site teams.
Yeah, I think, as we, approach the last 20% at a lot of our properties, I think making it a point to really listen to the teams as far as like when they are getting, leads in the door and they're walking out the door. Is it because of price? Is it, because of, down the street, they're offering a concession? So I think really paying attention to the reasons why, especially at high traffic properties, and being able to pivot quickly and not having to take, 2 to 3 weeks to be like, okay, we need to make a change here with a concession or a gift card. So I think for us, it's making sure that we're constantly being nimble and ready to pivot if, at a moment's notice, we need to up a special or throw in a different, renewal deadline discount. So that's kind of our strategy right now with where things are at. But we're excited. I'm glad that we're headed into spring spring leasing, and hopefully we can all come out on top before we head into spring break.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate the insight as always. You were all great. Best of luck to the latter half of the leasing cycle here. Wes, I know you have some guys that really like to talk. So I'm going to yield the floor to the good boys of the social media panel. And thanks as always.
Yeah, absolutely, Charlie. Appreciate it. And to our panelists, Aly, Jasmin, Paige, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice blazer.
Thanks, brother.
All right, I think we've got everybody. Let's get Matt on here really quick. Well, guys, I cannot believe it. We're at the bottom of the hour, and we hit it. I was that doesn't always happen. But hey, we've got a lot of time here here at the. Excuse me. We've got 30 minutes here at the end of Shop Talk. I wanted to go ahead and start jumping into this topic of social media strategy and what operators need to know. For those that don't know, we have a leadership committee that helps me with all things Shop Talk on things that they want to discuss. And one of the things that they came up with back in the fall was, hey, we really need to start talking about social media strategies. There's been a lot of things that have changed, over the past year, and of course continue to change. So, they kind of had some questions as to, we know we're on top of this every day, but can we take a breather really quick and talk to some of the agency folks and some of the other folks, Alex, that are in this day to day and kind of get their perspective on it. So, I reached out to these guys. I'll let them introduce themselves. And thanks so much for agreeing to do this today, guys. Alex, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's an honor to be here, especially alongside some of the best experts in the space and two guys that I can call my own personal friends. My name is Alex Abernathy, Executive Vice President at Asset Living. I oversee global marketing here at Asset Living, as well as our in-house agency, Poetic. I started my career at University of Florida 16 years ago in the student housing space, and been with Asset for a little over 13 years. The bulk of my career was spent in the new development lease-up space, where obviously social media has become a huge play for us and a huge importance. So again, appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak on some of those things. But I also had the opportunity to spend 2 years kind of building an agency from the ground up at Poetic. That's our digital and creative agency at Asset. And now I'm getting the opportunity to get involved a little bit in multifamily as well.
Matt, I swear I didn't pick out your location on here, so
we're already getting the college stuff going, and that's great. Hey, everybody. Matt Pavlick, president of GRO. Also excited to be here with two really good friends of mine who also have much better hair than I do. GRO, full-service digital marketing agency. We've got an office in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I usually say Roll Tide, but since Alex's other team, Michigan, took us down, I have to tame myself there. But we also have offices in Nashville, Tennessee, and Detroit, Michigan, predominantly in the housing space, but we also work with a lot of brands outside of the housing space as well. And yeah, pleasure to be here.
Sam.
All right. My name's Sam Winn. I'm the VP of product right now at Agency 53. I've been in this space for about 8 years now, and started out as an agency with a client who was in student housing. And I'll say I got into this to solve a lot of the attribution, the ROI, and all these numbers that folks really had a hard time understanding, just due to intricacies with the systems that we work with. So it's been a really fun journey to help launch Agency 53 almost 7 years now. So it's been great to see that grow. We've got a large presence in student housing. We do a lot in multifamily as well, single family rentals, BTR. So as everyone else said here, it's a pleasure to be here with Matt and Alex. I would be lying if I said this is the only time we get together and talk. They're great friends, so it's always good keeping up on trends and what everyone's doing.
Well, hey, I want to start off with kind of the end in mind, and that's of course success with these strategies. And Alex, with Asset, you guys have got over 200 student housing properties. From kind of that 30,000 foot view for you and for your team, what does success look like for those properties? And to dive deeper into that, how's it defined? How are you guys measuring it? And each market, are you using the same standard? I realize I forgot the D on the end of my standard here. But are you guys using the same standard of measurement for, a UT Austin versus, UNC Pembroke versus, an Ivy League school, because you guys are managing it all. So give us that 30,000 foot view.
Yeah. One of the most exciting parts about my job is that I get to oversee a variety of different assets across the country. And as you stated, a variety of different markets as well. Success in social media for this year, I think really boils down to content and investment in content. It's the ability to give your prospective renters a view into the lifestyle of your community. You don't want that content to be too raw. You also don't want that content to be too professional. So it's a fine line of balance, but with the right content, you can have the right level of engagement. I think about how we all use social media, and in most cases, we're showcasing the highlights of our lives. A lot of it is this moment of now that we're utilizing it for in our personal lives. The same applies for our communities. And you want to leverage social media to be professional, appealing, but also very authentic in the content. And that can set a foundation for how you can be successful. Now, on the great question, how do you measure the success? It really boils down to the overall goal of each of our communities. It's a hybrid approach. There's some foundational things that we do everywhere, but there's also some tailored goals and tailored strategies that we want to implement based on the community needs and what that community identity is. Some of the communities that are in a competitive, saturated market, you've got to fight for brand awareness within that market. Matt and Sam can speak way more on the advertising component and how you're able to leverage paid social opportunities for that brand awareness play. But globally, we want to drive engagement with our residents. I think that's the most valuable thing for us is, it's very rare that you're going to have the resources, skill, and honestly, the luck to be able to go viral in an organic setting on social media. And that's where you see massive brand awareness success on the organic side. So what we want to lean into is really the engagement with our residents. The biggest measure of success is being able to attribute follows and engagement directly to leasing. RealPage actually had a really good study that came out this past year, and it showed a high level of favorability to Gen Z renters utilizing social media for validation. And it actually cited that over 70% of renters are visiting or following the apartment's social media platforms before deciding to sign a lease. It's similar to going and reading reviews. If you're being sold on a certain lifestyle, social media gives us the opportunity to give that lens to the prospective resident and showcase what that lifestyle is like. It's ultimately a validator. And then when we think about, how do we measure that? How do we strategize between the various markets? Because every market is different. It is and it isn't. I've always said that you have this 70-30 philosophy, which basically says that 70% of our efforts should be foundational efforts. It should be pretty consistent across the board. That's content related. That's the time that we are spending and investing into the platform, how we're driving engagement. While that other 30% should really be tailored to the specific market, community, and the renter demographic. You can be in the same market and have two totally different social media strategies between two assets based on what that renter demographic is. In some markets, we're still seeing a ton of engagement and activity on X. Others, it's Instagram, and more specifically Instagram Reels. Facebook still plays in some markets, and it also has a high level of parent engagement. TikTok's certainly dominating a ton of people's time right now, which I know Matt has a ton of insight on that. Sam has some perspective as well. But our strategy should always be, own the platform that our specific demographic is spending the most time on and engaging the most with, so we can see a return that's tailored to that market.
I've got some follow-up questions on that, but Sam and Matt, before I jump into that, anything else you guys want to add?
You want me to take it? Okay. That was, Alex, you crushed it. The 30,000 foot view, all of that. I agree 100% with that. Just to get a little bit more granular in regard to the measurement, and we'll start out a little bit bigger picture, but I've used this analogy before, but we're gonna put it in Michigan football terms since they beat Alabama. But marketing, right? There's multiple touch points before a conversion happens. There's no scenario where they see something once and then they're going to pull the trigger when it comes to an investment as large as picking a place to live in college. So Michigan, Alabama, 1 second left, it's tied. Michigan kicks the game-winning field goal. Everybody rushes the field. They pick up the field goal kicker. Everybody's hyping him up. He gets the interview. He gets all the praise, right? That's the last moment that happened. But what about all of those other moments before? What about the touchdowns, the interceptions, all of those things? That played a role in that outcome. And what's so tough about what we do, and it's so tough about what everybody watching this, what we go through, is trying to prove the value of social media and really speaking to organic. In GA4, Google Analytics, one of the most favorite things that I love looking at, and it perfectly encapsulates the football analogy, is you can actually see how many touch points and what specific touch points a user takes before they convert. So if you guys want to find where it is, you go into GA4 and you actually go into the advertising panel, even though it's organic, but you hit the advertising panel and then you look at conversion paths, and it will show you exactly what channels and how many times they interacted with those channels before they converted. So you may have someone that does an organic search first, and then organic social, and then they'll convert on direct. Okay. So those three should all get credit. But what GA4 has done is they actually will tell you first touch point, mid touch point, and then closing touch point, which is awesome. So I'm looking at a property here in State College, and I can see that organic social has played a part in a user converting, but that user also touched paid search. That they also typed in the name of the website, the domain, which is direct. But there's evidence that organic social was the first touch point. It gets credit for mid touch points on conversions and the last touch point. So if you think about it there, it may not be the main conversion driver, but it does play a role in pushing someone down that funnel. That's huge. And you've got to be able to see that and then communicate that to whether it's your senior management team, your boss, your ownership group. That data is there. So that's the true measurement. You can see conversions and you can see which conversions organic social played a part of. To dive down in app a little bit, inside the app, likes and comments, they're great. But the one that I love tracking is the share or the message. Think about how many of us will be on social media and we're lurkers, right? We look at the content, we don't comment, but we DM everybody. I do this with my wife when she's 3 feet away from me on the couch, and it's usually stupid videos. And I know most of you do that as well, right? But that's a level, or that's called lurking. You're not really engaging with that post. You're not being seen, but you're spreading the word. So I challenge you, if you have a post that has 30 likes and 5 comments and 2 shares, what holds the most value, right? All of them are valuable, but those 2 shares, usually when someone shares a student housing post, they're either sharing it with 1 or 2 people. It's their friends and potential roommates or their parents. So that's just a small little tidbit diving down from the 30,000 foot level. Make sure you take a look at those shares, because if you're not getting a ton of engagement, but there's 1 or 2 shares, that may mean something's brewing, underground and could lead to something good in the future.
Alex, from a property level, is it pretty typical for site managers to have that access to their Google Analytics and be able to go through that, or is that something you guys typically do more at a regional level?
Yeah, it's tough because GA4, they've done a lot of things to be able to make it much easier to navigate and find that information. So I think it's a little bit easier today than it was with just the former Google Analytics. But our success is that collaboration between our regional leasing and training directors, our regional marketing team, and that on-site level, to just have transparency in the data and what that story is told with that data, to be able to make informed decisions. Not going to say we don't have site managers that get into GA4. It's definitely a case by case, but it's not yet there where we're giving everybody access to it.
Sam, anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick up a couple breadcrumbs here. I think you guys did a great job covering that. I mean, one thing on the GA4 side is, although it's become easier to access, it's really important that you're looking at the data in the same way across, whether it's your partners or your organization. There's a lot of things that Matt talked about. And as Alex said, it is easier to access, but if you're pivoting this data differently, you're going to see attribution models come out in different ways. So I think aligning on that attribution model, what works best for you, their data-driven attribution model, which is kind of what they coined this going into GA4, is super powerful stuff. I think Matt nailed it in terms of when we look at whether it's organic or any paid media advertisements, for so long, because so many of our property management systems and CRMs just in touch a single point of attribution, it's kind of how we've been making decisions. So we really work with our partners and our clients and looking at optimizing the overall output, which is where these tools within GA4 are phenomenal. Because I think when you go back to it, think about why you go to social networks. What are you looking for? What are you spending time on? Often I think we really overcomplicate it. So when it comes to that side of things as well, I think some really key things to hone in on is kind of going back to the basics of what's your messaging, what's your CTA, and what content are you putting out there? You shouldn't have the same messaging that you're using in Google search to drive an initial interaction with your website as you're using with a remarketing ad, right? That would be like saying the same thing to someone who already turned down your offer the second time. So it's really important to understand that user journey, analyze that through Google Analytics, kind of see how that flow is happening, and make sure you're coming back to your prospective residents with different messaging, different offerings, and not everything needs to be leased now, right? If they're on TikTok and scrolling through things, they're looking to engage with content. They want to see that lifestyle. They want to have this, emotional draw to your community. So it doesn't always need to direct someone to a bottom of the funnel approach. You just want to use those channels to move that user through their journey and through your marketing funnel. So I would say the biggest thing that I would focus on in 2024 is optimizing output. We're going to move into these multi-attribution models. Like, that's only getting closer and closer. There's some phenomenal third-party CRMs out there that do a great job and are already on the forefront of this. So start making those decisions around what you're putting into Google ads, meta ads, TikTok, organic, and look at that overall output. Don't judge every single channel in a silo. You got to understand how that marketing mix works together.
So I want to get on to advertising, but before I do that, I think we've got a question here that I wanted to bring up. Since you mentioned different channels. This is coming from Chris Ancazer at Pierce Education Properties. Do you foresee any social media platforms gaining traction with the student demographic beyond the usual suspects like Facebook, Insta, TikTok, and X? You guys seeing anything pop up that?
I'll jump in real quick. I mean, I think there's always going to be new networks, right? We saw Be Real come out. We see Snapchat run a Super Bowl ad, and they're very, taking a step back from advertising and really positioning themselves as share your content with your friends and how to interact with like friends and not strangers. It was a really unique approach, I think, from a positioning standpoint that they took. And then also, when you look at the industry at large, there's so much consolidation everywhere, and that's happening outside of this industry with platforms as well. We saw Google 2 years ago do a huge deal with Amazon to better include and direct users that are looking to find things on Amazon, but push them to that Amazon store. Earlier this week, they're announcing a new partnership with Pinterest, a low and forgotten social media platform. But now, pretty soon in 2024, you're going to be able to integrate and advertise on Pinterest through Google Ads platform. So I think the benefit from that, Wes, and like kind of going back to your question, is there's going to be new entries. There's going to be social media networks that come and go and some that come and stay. But I think even from an accessibility standpoint and from an advertising, it's going to be easier for us to leverage them. We're seeing a lot of consolidation in terms of how these platforms are serviced and interact with. So I think it's definitely something to be mindful of. And again, as Alex brought up, understand your demographic, understand your target audience. Where are people spending your time, and know how to speak to them there.
How are you guys on the agency side? How are you guys figuring out when to start playing with things like that? Is it feedback that you're hearing from the site managers? Is it things that you're studying and looking at professionally, or when do you guys get to that point that you're like, okay, we need to play around with this a little bit?
Yeah. So just to take that from my side, we have a different variety of clients and a lot of different personalities and people that are super proactive and super demanding. And then some people are like, we don't have to hear from you unless, we've got a problem. So when there's clients that are doing really good and maybe they're closer to 100% lease up and they've got the budget to do a little bit of testing, that's when we deploy some of those tactics. Like a connected TV, it's a more expensive buy. It's kind of not proven yet in student housing. We've done those things. Maybe Reddit ads, which look, there are school community threads on Reddit, and you can advertise to those communities. We've done some of those things. So I think it really just depends on the person that we work with on the I guess we'll call it the client side, and how much they want to push us. But I do want to add really quick, be real. Every single high school kid is using it. YouTube Shorts is big too, but here's the thing. It has not really been adopted in college yet. So I mentioned this at LeaseCon. When I asked a group of kids in college if they used Snapchat, all of them raised their hand. Mm-hmm. When I asked them if they used YouTube Shorts, none of them raised their hand. So you got to think about it, Chris Ann. I don't think anything is coming in like the next 6 months that's just going to blow us away, and we have to change everything. But maybe in 2 to 3 years, it's kind of like music. So many people love Widespread Panic because they listened to it when they're like 16 years old, and it carried them over into college and 40 years old. So like the impressionable age of like 15, 16, 17, if those are the things they're using and comfortable with, that's probably going to carry over in about 2 to 3 years. So, but yeah, I would think that Be Real at some point is going to have to introduce some sort of advertising model, as all these startups do. But the last thing is these platforms, even though they're competitors, they're also integrating as well. I think 2 weeks ago, I saw this when I was performing a search. I actually saw TikTok videos in Google's search engine results page. So now they're bringing in TikTok videos on Google, and it was the #1 ranked thing.
Not TikTok repurposed into a short, but it's actually pulling. Wow. Okay.
It's pulling. So you're going to see some cross pollination there too.
Yeah. I think on our end, we're, like one of our core values and in our mission statement is just be curious, stay innovative. So there's always things we're playing around with. I think to Matt's point, we've got a really, really solid group of partners that we work with, a lot of trust. So when we talk about new platforms and new initiatives that we want to kick off, usually most of our partners are really excited to be in that beta testing. And we're really talking about like awareness. I think one of the biggest things that we want to do for our partners is get out of those silos. There's only so much we can do just through Google's platform with you. One of the biggest things we can do is spread your reach. So how effective can we do that? How effective can we manage your money from new platforms? So usually we'll tap into some budget there to explore new initiatives. But
hey, I want to move over to advertising. Before I do that, just back to what you said, Matt, about Reddit, just a clue for anybody who doesn't know it already. If you're in a university or at a university that you don't know what's happening with enrollment, where they're at with assignment, you're going to find out if they've overbooked in Reddit before you find out anywhere else. So make sure that you subscribe to the Reddit for the institution that you're at. Well, hey, Matt, I want to go over to you on advertising, because you said something this past summer when it came to TikTok on your podcast. And for those that aren't following Matt's podcast, sorry, Matt, I didn't realize I had you blocked here. Give me just a second. I'll take Chris N's question down. But if look, Student Housing Insight is a fantastic podcast, but I will tell you that the producer of the Student Housing Insight podcast listens to Matt's podcast, which is Student Housing Marketing Podcast. So thanks so much for putting, I think you've had that out for a year or so now, and you've got some great content. But this summer you mentioned a couple of things about TikTok advertising specifically, and you're getting, I guess, reeling back a little bit on some of the things that you'd said previously about, hey, yeah, if you've got the money, dump it in there, but just because of the targeting, it just doesn't work. Well, now they've switched from, now going into both city as well, instead of just DMA, you've got both the city as well as zip code that it's going to. There's some things there that I'm sure you probably want to share with everybody, but I thought that was fantastic, and I kind of want to start there.
Thanks. And look, yeah, totally unnecessary to plug the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's frustrating. We can't catch Rogan or Smartless. We've been trying. It's probably because I haven't recorded an episode in about 7 months, but we'll fix that. All right, to get into basically the state of like paid advertising on social, we're going to group the big three, right? So we've got TikTok and Meta. The good thing is TikTok has now caught up with Meta in regard to targeting capabilities. But that's also saying like a baseball team went 2-10 in the season, and now they're 3-9 in regards to the targeting capabilities. As all of you know, the special ads category has really nuked most of our targeting. But now TikTok and Facebook and Instagram are all on this even playing field in terms of location targeting. So when I recorded that podcast, TikTok's minimum targeting was the DMA. And that just absolutely doesn't work for 99% of the universities. Well, then it got down to the city level with Facebook and Instagram. And actually, I think, now don't shoot me here if I'm wrong, but I think Facebook and Instagram, the minimum is city plus 10 miles. TikTok is now city. So it carves off 10 miles. But both of them, you can't get down to zip code targeting, even though TikTok now offers that. But you really want to call it city in terms of the geographic targeting. TikTok still does have that $20 a day minimum budget. So you just need to know that. And if you're an operational property, or if you're a new dev that doesn't have as big of a budget as something in College Station or Tempe, Arizona, you need to be really thoughtful of that. Interest targeting, age targeting, it's out the window. It's just 18 and up. But Facebook and Instagram and TikTok have made this huge push at promoting all of the advancements and all of the AI. They feel that even though your targeting is broad, they can find the people you still want to hit. And we've actually seen that. We've actually seen that when iOS 14 came out and removed or pretty much killed all the app tracking, we did see a dip in conversions, but now it's back up to where it is. So it does seem like Facebook and TikTok's tech, or Meta and TikTok's tech, is in a good spot right now. But I do have some numbers really quick I'm going to share, and then I'll throw it over to these guys. So I looked at about 20 million impressions or ads that we served on TikTok, and a ton more on Facebook. And I'm trying to have some sort of comparison here to give you guys an understanding of what's more important to you. So when it comes to the brand awareness play, how many, impressions and ads can we serve? TikTok is a cheaper buy. What we have seen. Now there's some outliers, and different properties and different markets are different, but the majority that we're seeing, the CPM, the cost per 1,000 ads served, is about a third lower than Meta. Okay.
Okay.
Now on the flip side, Meta ads, you're going to get a better CTR, 3 times the CTR of what we're seeing. Again, there's outliers here, but you're going to have a higher click-through rate, which means there's going to be more traffic. The cost to generate more traffic per click is going to be a little bit lower. Okay. So, you know, those things are important because, again, it's all a part of this marketing mix, the multi-touch point, right? Everybody plays a role. In terms of cost per conversions, TikTok conversions for us are twice as much as what we're seeing on Meta right now. It's almost up to 10 times as much as what we're getting on a Google paid search ad. So think about that. So, you know, if you have the budget and if you can really sell it to your senior management or your bosses or ownership group that TikTok is a brand awareness play, it is going to help, you know, shove users down the funnel. If you can sell it and you have the budget, sure. Just know that Facebook and Instagram, in terms of the actual results, is performing a little bit better, and paid search is still king. So if you had $1,500 and you can maybe only afford one tactic, you may want to do paid search. Now, retargeting is still important. I still think you at least need to have 2 tactics out there because of we know how long the sales cycle is. But I thought it was important for everyone to know. More ads served, more impressions usually leans towards TikTok, more clicks, Facebook, cost per conversion. Facebook, Instagram's a little bit better right now, with paid search still being king. Sam and Alex, if you're seeing something completely different, call my BS. Love to have a discussion about it.
Well, hey, really quick, because we're at the top of the hour, I know some folks, you know, want to go. We're going to go into, I asked you guys beforehand, hey, you know, we've got some questions that I got from some of our ambassadors beforehand, and we've still got 60 folks. I think we tapped out at like 75 or something. So we've retained a lot of folks on here. I'm sure they've got some questions. So guys, we're going to go into the Q&A section for, you know, the next 15 minutes or so if you want to stay on. But for those that need to get back to your day, if you've gotten any value out of today, please share Shop Talk with your colleagues. You can send them to shoptalk.info to register there. Our next one is going to be Thursday, March 14th. So put that on your calendar. You can also go to shoptalk.info and just click register to receive. I think it's register to receive meeting invites is what it says. And we will email that to you each week or each month. So, so for those that have got to go, appreciate it. Let's get back to what we were talking about from an advertising standpoint. And you guys, Sam, Alex, you want to respond to what Matt was mentioning?
Yeah, you know, I think it comes down to, as well with what Matt was saying, it boils down to the strategy for that market, for that property. Obviously, great comparison, great example, Matt, on if you have $1,500, I'm almost going to say put it all towards paid search, especially this time of year, right? But if you do have a budget or you are in a market that would support more of that brand awareness advertising through a platform like TikTok, it can make total sense. It makes sense in the State College, Pennsylvania's. It makes sense in the Gainesville, Florida's, or the College Station, Texas's. It doesn't make sense, and will probably never make sense in the Houston, Texas's. Like University of Houston, you're going to have to reach 3 million people if you want to run.
Alex, I think you're the first person that's pluralized Texas.
Sorry. I'm becoming a Texan. I've lived here for 11 years now, the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my life. And so I throw a lot of y'alls in there too.
We need more Texas.
But really, it comes down to the strategy, and it comes down to the dynamics of your market. Sam, you may have some additional thoughts on it too.
Yeah, I'll be quick so we can get to questions. But Matt, from a numbers perspective, I think we see pretty similar things. Like what I say is just go back to, and as Alex said before, track it to the lease. You know, we may see a higher cost per lead coming out of other channels, but if it's a more qualified lead, then that's what we're after. We don't want people in the store. We want customers. So, and as you explore advertising on new platforms, go in with intent to measure, you know, understand how you can showcase value, or even take the next step to better understanding how you want to measure that. But, you know, don't just launch anything blind. And I think an easy way to get into some of those new advertising channels and test that out is, people talk about the use of evergreen content. I think our content team does a great job of looking at it from a perspective of, evergreen content isn't a set and forget. It's, there's 3 R's that follow that, which is, re-examine, reimagine, and repurpose. So like figure out those trends, figure out how to use what's working to speak to different audiences, and understand that your audience isn't every student at College Town. It's going to be what that value prop is from your building that applies to a specific set of renters. In student housing, we're lucky enough that we do have smaller audiences of, students and parents or guarantors. But really understand that you're not, your community might not be right for every single person. So understand what that niche is. And from Alex's point of view, develop the strategy around it and stand behind it. That's the messaging. It's concise messaging is way better than a broader approach.
Great. We want to get on to some of the questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this one comes from Cole Orm at Tiger Properties in Clemson. Which is more effective, using micro-influencers versus NIL athletes, for those that don't know, for user-generated content to promote a property?
Alex, you take this one.
Matt and I have talked about this quite a bit. And, when we think about NIL, making a deal with Jalen Milroe, the quarterback of Alabama, probably isn't going to give you the best return, because while it's great that you're leveraging his follower base and his fan base is, 25,000 students at Alabama and about 400,000 middle-aged guys spread out across the country that are trying to follow the college student quarterback. Where we've seen more success in the NIL program is that, when you can partner with athletes that are known and have a follower base around campus, but aren't global superstars, you can get much more targeted to the actual students that are at the university. That is your relevant demographic. The micro influencers, same way. If it's a micro influencer that is primarily an influencer for that college town, then yes, 100%, it's going to have a return, and it's a great thing to explore.
One quick question on the micro influencer: are you seeing better success when the site staff is kind of farming that themselves locally versus using some of these companies out there that promote micro influencers to local companies in the campuses?
Your site staff's going to have more knowledge of who these micro influencers are. I think you do run a risk when you source it from an outside agency that they could have a follower base that doesn't necessarily relate solely to that college town. Your site staff should have really good insight, and at the very minimum, I would say, should be consulted on some of these decisions.
Yeah, and just to add, to simplify this as best as I can, Anne-Marie Heiser, who's a tennis player for Alabama, like that is the equivalent of zip code targeting when you're trying to do your location targeting for digital marketing. It's very precise. It's very granular. Livy Dunn is like targeting everyone in the solar system. It's a giant, giant waste of money. So if you're thinking about it of really just kind of location targeting, your softball players, tennis players, maybe your backup, wide receivers, or again, on the micro influencer side, somebody with 2,000, 3,000 followers, they're going to have much more qualified and in-tune people. And there's calculators out there where you can calculate engagement rates. When you see some of those higher number influencers, those engagement rates are really, really low. And when you have those micro influencers, the engagement rates are really, really high. So I am pro micro for sure.
Gotcha. All right. It's from Alex Rippey at GMH Communities. Everyone says to be authentic, but what does that actually look like in 2024?
Buzzword: authenticity is key, just like content is king. Alex, you want to hit this one too, or Sam, hit this one.
I'll jump in, and I actually like how Alex navigated this earlier. I think you said a blend between like raw and professional. And I was like, ooh, where do we land in the middle of that? That's, authenticity. So I think, being authentic is something that we've seen thrown around over the last 4 or 5 years quite strongly. And I think when it comes to the authenticity and you're representing the community, which is what we're trying to successfully advertise for, authenticity really starts with what's your brand strategy? What's your brand narrative? How is everyone embodying that? And how do you make sure that's consistent? I think consistency and authenticity really go hand in hand. So when you're thinking about your messaging and all of your kind of go-to-market strategy for that unique property, you just really need to understand, and lean into what's your angle and keep that consistent and keep it true. Don't stand on your strengths, understand your weaknesses, understand where you're going to compete well, where you're not going to compete well, and lean into those. So I think a lot of that is just really, self-reflection as a property, as an on-site team, as an agency representing them, and making sure that we're doing our best to highlight those areas of strengths and communicate that to our target audience. Going back to not every student's the right student for your community and a market, like that's where authenticity sells.
Yeah, just two stats that I have. 65% of TikTokers say professional looking videos look out of place. And 71% say creator authenticity has motivated them to buy a product. So, pretty much aligns with what you guys have to say. You got to find a balance. Like people want flash too. They want to see the amenities, the pool and everything else. And they want to feel, high quality in a materialistic way. They also want to feel like they're being taken care of and they're going to a safe place and they're going to a place that they can thrive. And that's where the authentic messaging comes. They want to see and feel the heartbeat of the property.
Yeah. Authenticity speaks to emotions, not to features.
Yeah, Matt and Sam, I don't know if you've seen it on the agency side, but I've looked heavily into a Class A++ deal recently that had a lot of professionally produced video on their property's Instagram. And it was almost like Instagram Meta had shadow banned those videos.
Really?
When you looked at some of the more authentic and raw video and posts that they had on their profile, they had way more views, way more engagement. Those professionally produced videos that have text overlays, it was like they were getting 20 views on them.
So let me ask you this. When's the last time you shared any sort of video with any of your friends that was like this Steven Spielberg 4K master production? Like it doesn't happen anymore. Like, yes, professional photos on the website, maybe on the news feed of Instagram, I think there's a value, but like think about like an iPhone does the trick. If the content inside the video is superior, they don't care what, if it's been upscaled to 4K. Right? It's all about the messaging in the video. Long form video on the website. Here's an intro video with your renderings and, professionally shot stuff. Perfect. But like you hit it, man. Like the authentic stuff works, or let's call it low quality, high quality stuff.
Like Yeezy's Super Bowl ad.
What do you do? 19 million? 19 million.
Yeah, I think Alex, that's, the right content for the right platform. What are people going to these platforms and expecting to see? You got to meet them where they're at.
So one last question that I've got, and thanks for giving us this extra time, but talking about the content, putting together, Matt, I know, you guys are going out and helping clients, put together photography, around campus and other sites and that type of thing. So they've got content ready to go, throughout the year. It's not something that they're hunting for, as they go along with the academic year. I know a lot of, and Alex, I know Asset's been great with this. When a new development's coming online, you guys, typically send a crew out, hire some student models, that type of thing to go out and create that content that's really going to sell the property, that, because you're selling a dream. No one really knows what the place is going to look like, but you've got to, kind of sell that brand. How long after a new development is delivered should that be refreshed? Is it the next year? Is it 3 years down the road?
I mean, staying on the theme of authentic, the thing that we try to encourage the most with our clients that we work with, and Jessica Mancuso, who runs that team, does a phenomenal job of it, is that, you have to refresh your content to be authentic. It's tough when you look at a new development that was delivered in fall of 2023 at this stage that still has renderings up, or that still has an animated virtual tour fly through. That's not really giving our demographic or our consumers a real look at what the experience is there. So you do have to refresh based on how your situation and your goals change.
Gotcha. Guys, anything else? Any other wise words?
I think that's it on my end.
Well, guys, thanks for the extra time. Thanks for being a part of ShopTalk today. Appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Looking forward to seeing you guys at the next conference if I don't see you before.
Yeah, I'll be in Austin. So I hope everybody that's here and going to Austin, come say hey to us. I think all 3 of us will be here, and we look forward to meeting you guys.
Great. Well, thanks for all 42 of you who have stayed on. Again, the next Shop Talk is on Thursday, March 14th. So we will see you then. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Wes. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.